Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Read and Reread. I'm Angelia, and it's time for Friday Reads on February 2nd. We have officially moved into February. It's Groundhog Day. I don't know. I didn't watch the news. I don't know what the Punxsutawney Phil saw, but it's been full on spring here for a couple of weeks. We had those 2 cold days, and then never mind about that. It's in the 60s and 70s. So I hope it is also springtime soon wherever you are, if you are in one of the chillier environs. So what is going on? I have some bookish news, and then I'll talk about the books I've been reading. Before that, TV, nothing new. We're still watching True Detective, and I am looking at some of the shows that people have suggested to add something else into the lineup. Also, we were talking about maybe rewatching Schitt's Creek. It's been a while since we watched that, and 2024 seems like a good time to watch something that is funny and kind. So that's on the docket. So let's move on to the bookish news, because there are a couple of things. The big news is that the BookTube Prize has begun for the year. And if you are new to BookTube or you haven't heard about the BookTube Prize, I will put their channel in the notes. But it is basically a prize that it has a fiction and a nonfiction division currently, and the judges for this prize are members of the BookTube community. So it's not just people with channels, it's also viewers. It's whoever threw their hat in the ring back last November and December when they called for judges. And then it begins with a large field of books in fiction and nonfiction. Right now there's 48 in each, and then they're divided into groups of 6. And each group has judges assigned, and we have 2 months to read and rank those books. And the rules stipulate that we do not, we can say that we're reading them, we can say that we're in the group, but we don't offer our opinions. We don't evaluate or make reviews on social media until this time period is done. So after February and March, I guess like the first week of April, then I can post a video about my reviews of the 6 books and how I ranked them. So I did it last year. It was a lot of fun. Last year I was not in the first round, but this year I am. And I am judging in this group here. I'll put up a graphic. It's Group C. These are the 6 books. 2 of these books I have already read, and I do have them here at the house so I can look back through them. And those are Tom Lake by Ann Patchett, and I Have Some Questions for You by Rebecca Makkai. And then the other 4 I have not read. 2 of them are available at my public library. I picked one up already, Witness by Jamel Brinkley, and also The Rachel Incident by Caroline O'Donoghue, which I'll be requesting because somebody has it out right now. And then 2 other books that I have ordered, which are Interghost by Isabel, Hammad, and August Blue by Deborah, Levy. So those will be on their way to me. And then, so I'll read 2 of them in February and 2 of them in March, and then I'll be ready to do my rankings. So I'm excited to read these new books. They were all things... They're all books that I have heard of, and some of them, I won't say which because I'm not making these kind of evaluative remarks, but some of them have been on my TBR, and some of them I have heard of them, but I didn't really know much about them. So I am excited to read all of these, and I'll be able to share my thoughts on them later. If you are also a judge, let me know in the comments which group and category you're judging so I can be thinking about what you're reading too. Even though I'm not judging in nonfiction, I saw a lot of really exciting books in there that I'm interested in. Some of them I'd heard about, some of them just the mere description of their titles had me intrigued, so I'm following that one pretty closely as well. In personal bookish news, I posted in my community tab the other day about my new bookcase. So that is one of my projects this weekend, is shifting all of the books, and I'm going to be able to leave space on each shelf for new additions. And I'm going to continue to be mindful of what gets added to the library, because there is not another inch of space to put any more bookcases in this room, and they will start spilling out across the house, which it's not the worst thing that could happen, right? but I'm trying to keep it under control, sort of. So I'm excited to work on that. And also the veggie burger update. I did get the book back out of the library about veggie burgers every which way by Lucas Volger. Volger or Volger, I'm not sure. But it's vegetarian, not vegan, but there's tips on how to veganize each recipe, or else I just kind of already know. And so I have picked out a few of them. I'm going to narrow it down to pick out one or two to try out. If the book's really excellent, maybe I'll get my own copy. But I'm going to do a little weekend experiment in making my own veggie burgers. So that's my big weekend, reorganizing books and making burgers. Woohoo! Let's talk about what I've been reading in this past week. Where we left off, I was right at the end of Julia by Sandra Newman. I've returned it to the library, but I'll put a picture up. And I really, really liked this book. If you have read 1984, whether you were a fan of that book and it's an iconic part of your reading, or you're a dystopian fiction reader, or you didn't like 1984 for various reasons, I still think you should read Julia. As long as you have a familiarity with 1984, it's a good read. Julia, the character, is a really interesting and well-developed person in this story. She's 26 years old. And that, in 1984, they kind of mention this age difference because Winston's about 40, but he's a hard living 40. He's an old 40. He's very worn out. The circumstances of the life in this totalitarian regime has really put a toll on him. He has varicose veins. He's always described in this very worn out gray aspect, and he's not any different here in this book. It's just it's not his point of view. So Julia wonders about some of these things, but she has her reasons for why she has chosen Winston. Like, what is it about him that is intriguing or appealing to her? And you have to read to find out. She's just a really resourceful, resilient character. We find out about her backstory, and about even at the age of 26, she already is a survivor. She has a lot of street smarts. She thinks fast. She reads a room or reads people really well and can make decisions about how to play different situations. When she misreads things, it's kind of shocking to her. She's taken aback once or twice in the book where what she perceived is not the way things are playing out, and then her wheels are just spinning. So I like her intelligence in this book. I like the look at how women live in this society. There's a point in the book where we get up to where 1984 ends, and that is a very famous ending, where we leave off on a certain thoughts that Winston Smith is having, and there's a last time that he and Julia encounter one another, and then there's this ending, and we get up to that place in the book, but it has shifted to Julia's perspective, and then that's not the end of the story. There's more, and it's good. Right there, I was so worried. I thought, okay, this might jump the shark right now and something really silly or far-fetched or something like that might happen, but I love what she did. I love where it went and where we leave off with Julia and her and what she's thinking and what is happening, and I can't say any more about it because it would be spoilers, but I really enjoyed this book. Then the next thing I did, I had a little dinky piece of January left, and I picked that time to do a reread that I've been waiting to do, which is How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu. This is one of those books that the minute that I closed it last year, I already wanted to reread it. It is a well-known fact that I reread pretty often for all kinds of different reasons, but some books, when you finish them, you don't really have any particular sense that you're going to read those books again. I mean, sometimes you are definitely never going to read that book again, but a lot of books, you don't really have any particular thought about it. And then there's some that as soon as you finish, you realize they are going into your rereading echelon. And some of them even reach this higher peak in that order. The minute you finish it, you're sad and you want to go back and start right away. At least that's how it is for me. And this was one of those. And part of it is because of the structure. And there's things that you learn right at the end of the book that make you want to reread it and see if you can follow certain threads and clues that tie together. These are interrelated stories that form a novel. It is dystopian, and as I remembered it, well, let me just talk about it for a minute. So what happens here is that some scientists in the Arctic are doing an excavation. And at the beginning of the story, a man has gone to join this team because his daughter, who is a scientist in this group, has died in an accident. And he wants to go and sort of contribute to her work, as he is also a scientist, and get a better understanding of what she was doing there and why it was so important. She has been distanced from the family. He and his wife have been raising their granddaughter, Clara's daughter, while she has gone on this mission. And she's always kind of kept them at arm's length. She's aloof. She's kind of distant. She's deeply committed to her science. And so he goes to find out, what is going on and what he can do to contribute. And he's processing his grief at the loss of Clara. All of this is laid out in the first couple pages, so this is not spoilers at all. And at this expedition, they have found the body of a young prehistoric girl in the ice, and they are thawing her out to study her. And that's what Clara was working on. But something that I kind of missed the first time around is how much in this book has to do with climate change, because the first thing that jumps in your mind is this virus. There's a virus escapes and becomes a big pandemic. But the whole reason that they are there to begin with is because they are concerned about the gradual melting of the ice in the Arctic and how that is going to release prehistoric viruses and bacteria. And they're trying to get a leg up on that and sort of see what's coming and address it before something terrible happens. Well, spoiler alert, it's not really a spoiler because that's what the whole book's about. Something does get out and jumps right past them. A pandemic gets out, and it goes through various stages. The first wave of it hits children really hard, and then as it changes and mutates, and does that sound familiar? It kind of changes its method of conveyance, or how contagious it is, or who it affects, and it goes over several years. As you move throughout the book, we keep moving forward in time as we go through and past this pandemic, and it has to do with grief, how different people process the losses that this wreaks. We hear about how even the economy and the way money and banking work changed due to the demand for funeral services and bereavement services. And so it affects society in a lot of different ways besides just the loss within families. And so all these different things are explored. Some chapters are about scientists working on, they've segued from whatever their original field was to try to help solve either curing the virus and different things that happen. It's science fiction, and some of it is weirder than others. Some of it's really weird, but all of it has a lot of heart and emotion in it. And then it ties together in a really surprising way by the end. That's it. That's all I'm going to say. I've reviewed it before because I read it last year, but I loved it again so much. The whole time I was reading it, this time I circled back and forth to different parts of the book the whole time because things started triggering memories of other parts and how things connected and reoccurring characters. So it was actually even more fun to read the second time. Another book that I finished this week that officially is the first book of February, because I finished it last night, is My Monticello by Jocelyn Nicole Johnson. These are a collection of short stories and one novella. And this is a debut book. The author lives in Charlottesville, and a lot of the story takes place, well, all of it takes place in that area as well. And here's what I thought about this. The novella, My Monticello, that was excellent. I'll talk about that a little more in just a second. The short stories that precede it were kind of a mixed bag for me. They were well written, but I wasn't that I had some trouble accessing or really feeling these stories because a lot of them are written in second person, almost in a laundry list format, like you did this and you did that and then you did this. And I think that can be really effective to for some readers. It doesn't really work that well for me. Those stories that are written like that, I feel like I'm kind of just looking at it and admiring the prose, and I'm not that in there. So I was reading the stories and thinking, I had that thought of like, these are well written. I wonder what else she's going to do. And then I got to the novella, and woo, that one really, it stuck the landing. It was so good. I could not put it down. And I, me and the disasters and the apocalyptic situations, but in that story, our main character is a college student, and she's a college student at UVA, and it is in a time that is just maybe a little bit in the future, and society has somehow unraveled. There's a slight description, and she calls it the unraveling. We're not quite sure what happened, but this paragraph kind of sums it up. The men with fire came in the wake of great and terrible storms that felled historic trees and flooded City Hall. They came after the power failed us and our phones went glitchy and dark in our palms. In those moments just after our cells all crashed, I witnessed a jet and a hospital copter both plunge from a rainless April sky. It was unclear whether we were under siege or whether the world was toppling under its own needless weight. So she does allude to the fact that before this giant collapse where the grid just really goes down and things become completely chaotic, that things were going south. There was climate issues, storms, and also civil unrest, political problems, which isn't really that different from what's actually going on right at this moment. But then this grid failure that nobody knows quite why it happened, and after that, it is completely chaotic, and there are roving bands of white supremacists terrorizing neighborhoods at night. And what happens in this story is she and a group of people from her grandmother's neighborhood. She is at home with her grandmother because things have fallen apart at the college. She goes home to check on her grandmother who raised her, and it's this multicultural neighborhood. Her boyfriend shows up too, her college boyfriend, who's a white guy. And so this whole group of people, a collection of people of different races, but mostly people of color, end up making an escape from this neighborhood one night in a van. And they end up at Monticello because she had worked there previously in the summer as an intern. And she has a family connection that she doesn't tell everybody about at first, but she and her grandmother are documented descendants of Sally Hemings. So they set up a kind of a fortress at Monticello. I'm not going to tell you the rest of what happens in here, but it is so good. It is really, really a good novella of about 150 pages, 200, I don't know. It's not really short, but it's like a short novel. And it is suspenseful, it is taut. The main character, Denisha, is a really interesting person. She has got some dilemmas to deal with that I'm not going to spoil for you. And just how the people scrabble something together. And it's tense right all the way through. So I recommend that novella in particular, more than the short stories, although I don't say don't read the short stories, but the novella is really it. A book that I am currently reading, I went ahead and I did start Black AF History. I'm reading a section every day, and I am really enjoying this so far. It is interesting, it is informative, it is funny. It's things that you've heard about, but you didn't hear all of it. And we're beginning at the beginning with explorers and the earliest colonizers who came to the area that is now the United States. And so I am enjoying this. I'll be keeping you updated along the way. And so as the new week unfolds, the next thing I'm going to be beginning is Bud, Not Buddy by Christopher Paul Curtis. This is a Bud read with Michael Clark, winner of the Newbery Medal back in somewhere in the 90s, and a great selection for Black History Month, or anytime you want to read an excellent piece of middle grade fiction or a book that has been banned or challenged. So it hits on many cylinders, and I'm looking forward to this reread. I probably should also accelerate Witness and put it higher up in my queue, since I am judging for BookTube Prize, and I will feel good if I get a start on these books that I need to read. These are short stories. They take place in New York City, and that's all I know. There's an incredibly vague description blurb in here that I'm just going to start reading it, and then I will be able to tell you what it's about. I just won't be able to tell you what I thought about it. And if I have time, I also want to start the next Jackson Brodie book that I am reading my way back through that series. So, but we shall see, because that's a lot of things. So what are you reading this week? What do you have planned for this weekend? Any comments on any of these books? You're allowed to comment if you read a book I'm judging for the BookTube Prize. I just can't really say much about it myself. So let me know what's going on, and I hope that you have an excellent weekend, and I'll be back on Tuesday for, I haven't planned it. I don't know. It might be a tag, it might be something else. I'll have to look at my master list of random ideas and see what I'm going to be talking about on Tuesday. Until then, have a great, I already said had a great weekend, but yeah, I really want you to. All right, see you later. Bye.